the pirates. Ryu doesn't have to wait long for the thing to start charging at him. Considering he hasn't even spotted its eyes yet, it likely heard him land on the bottom and has better hearing than he ever will. The gigantic black mass of muscle and blubber accelerates down towards him, and he can hear frustrated little sounds from the beast. Eyes furious to the point it's doing the equivalent of swearing under its breath. It swoops by him as graceful in the water as a bird in the air, and he dodges an enormous fin digging a trench through the gravel and sand. He's unhurt but pelted with stone and sand. That it takes a full 30 seconds for the proportionally squat animal to pass over him shows him just how much he underestimated the size of the creature. He brushes the dirt and debris out of his hair. He doesn't want to kill it, it's just an animal defending itself. But he has to scare it off, and he can't do so from size or sound. It's bigger and louder in every conceivable way. It's like a fly trying to scare off a cow. Possible in theory and never practical. It turns and comes around again, a mountain with a grudge. He doesn't try to dodge, he charges, directly at the creature as he races along the top of a ripple on the ocean floor. A speck with a sliver seeking to lay low a beast. He gathers axiom even as he feels the beast do the same. He jumps hard and allows the water to touch him, but air remains around his face. He rockets upwards even as the beast begins to inhale. Its insides are suddenly much larger, and it begins to drink down the entire ocean. He shoots himself upwards as the ocean comes back out, compressed and hurled with enough force to strike the bottom like a bomb. The world is as silt and sand and stone as Ryu is sent tumbling. It had literally missed by miles and still rocked him. Not that he's lost track of the creature, but the power is still impressive. A secondary shockwave from the water blast hits, and he rides it as best he can. He lands and rolls across the top of the enormous whale, and his grip on his sword is still good. He plunges it downwards, and it skids off the jet black flesh. It starts to rock, and he throws power into the blade itself. It sinks in, and the world starts shaking as sound beyond sound itself starts vibrating. Then there is a rush as the creature surfaces. From water to air, the transition is an instant, and to Ryu's left, the flesh parts on its own to expel its breath. The beast is a whale indeed, one with many hidden blowholes. It lets out a cry in the range he can hear, and he answers it even as he sinks the blade deeper. It thrashes in midair, and they hit the water with the force of a comet. He powers the brand on his left arm and avoids the two gigantic hands of water, smacking him like a god out to swat a fly. The creature thrashes again, and it pulls an axiom. Its flesh hardens, and everything near the beast is sent hurtling away, including Ryu and the sword he still holds. It takes several rotations for the water to finally bleed away the momentum as he allows it to touch him again. Once more, just his face is dry. In the seconds it took for him to right himself, the enormous creature had opened the distance between them into the kilometers range, and it gives a wide, almost leisurely turn. Then it swims close and passes by, slowing ever so that its enormous jet-black eye can pause over Ryu and look upon him with a gaze that pierces flesh and bone. He meets it, and neither man nor beast blink as the whale suddenly accelerates. It gives off another call, probing, curious, cautious. It has acknowledged him. He's just gone up from a fly to a wasp in its eyes. Either way, he's still in its home, and it will not let him move it. Not with so pitiful an attempt. Ryu stashes his sword up his sleeves and pulls at the axiom to pull at the water. It's easier to swim fast than it is to fly. Humans understand swimming in their bones and blood. Most swimming lessons are about getting people in the water and correcting their instincts into something more efficient. You don't learn to swim, you learn to swim better. He starts rocketing forwards to speeds that only axiom and engines can reach in the water, while the whale turns again, drinking in the ocean once more to attack him again. Clearly, it likes the trick. No one is badly injured. A bit of whiplash, and a few people knocked elbows into faces and other bits of stupid when Ryu knocked the boat out of the way. Mercy is already calling for backup when the entire ocean detonates and a plume of silt and gravel rises into the air like someone's been dropping bombs. "The hell is going on?" Abrazia demands. The girl was a galley cook whose suggestion slot led into an industrial-scale laser scour. She was also the kind of girl that did double duty in mech suits half the time. Don't know. There's a lot about this world that isn't known. There are things in the water, their captain and helmswoman says. She's a local fisherwoman and clearly takes this job seriously, as the Great Desert Nagasha has her whole face painted with markings along her 6 arms. Then darkness comes to the day as the whale launches itself out of the water, bellowing loudly enough that there are winces from everyone present. "He's fighting it," someone demands as they spot Ryu sticking to the side of the roiling beast and backlit by a massive spray of water and gases as a gigantic creature exhales. It hits the water again and the ocean itself seems to jump. Mercy takes off and gets a final glimpse of him as the ocean slams into his from either side with a loud and brutal clap. "Get us some water-based reinforcements yesterday. I am not losing my husband to some dumb animal." Mercy all but spits into her communicator. "We've got reinforcements on the way, but she hasn't worked with any of us yet." "Who is she?" Mercy demands before an airship rockets overhead, and an 8-bodied Lidris in full armor and with multiple weapon racks leaps off the side and into the water. She hits the water at the perfect angle where her claws are pointing down and her bodies are pointed away from the water to bring their weapons to bear in an instant, while the massive lower self does the work in swimming. Ryu full-on stops as he senses something and turns to regard. Is that Moira? The woman rescued. Duchess Lilpaw must have done some good and fast work when it came to recruitment, which is just a problem as the whale is aiming its maw much more carefully and unleashes the fullness of its power. Ryu has seconds before it impacts. He doesn't know how to phase or disintegrate things. He can't alter probability or transmute materials. He's not even good enough at redirecting force to do anything substantial to this nearly divine level hammer blow coming for him. But he can hold an entire armory on his person. He can redefine that and restructure it. He moves his hands in careful circles, spinning the other way, a space, a stretched space, a space with an exit and an entrance. Straight from the angle of going in, but going out. The whale lets out a sound of shock as the attack it sent suddenly vanishes, then returns going the wrong way. It swims frantically to dodge its own blow and pauses as the shot of water detonates on the surface and creates a massive tidal plume reaching for the clouds above. It turns and slowly regards Ryu again. Its brain might be primitive, but it's also the size of a house. Your name is Ryu, right?" Moira demands as she swims up. The Lidris seems to have let her stress just melt away with a mission in front of her. Purpose and direction has allowed her to set aside her own pain. She is not Moira, the victim who's lost everything. She is Specialist Octalary of the Vusa Defense Force and formerly of the Unrelenting Legion. "I am," Ryu answers as the crowd of a single person swims up beside him. "I'm your reinforcements." Moira states the obvious and receives a nod in return. "Good. The mission objective is to ward off the animal. We don't have to kill it, just convince it to leave," Ryu says as the whale begins to inhale the ocean once more. Is it really going to try again? Has he overestimated its intelligence? "Enemy specifications?" Moira asks as the torpedo racks she has on her lower body unfold and take aim. Turbines unfold from underneath them, and she's suddenly less small crowd of reinforcement, so much as a submarine here to help kick ass. Leviathan-class mammal. It's an air breather, but it holds its breath so long that's not an issue. It has several instinctive axiom uses, one making it seem smaller or more distant than it really is. It can reason and use axiom and has been actively using several techniques. It is intelligent, but cannot be reasoned with. "All right, oversized smart whale, got it," Moira says, and the whale finishes its inhale before it lets it all out. Not as a massive blackwater bullet, but a stream of dark water. Despite its better aim, it's clearly struggling to hit targets as comparatively small as a Lidris and a human, and Moira and Ryu are sent tumbling away from each other. Ryu starts swimming towards the whale again and pulls at axiom to increase his speed as best he can. Several smooth forms shoot past him in the water, and the whale turns to swat them with its tail. This is a mistake, as those were impact torpedoes, and when they go off, the gigantic creature lets out a low and furious sound that hits like a punch in the everything, despite Ryu reinforcing himself with Axiom. The whale charges and draws on the Axiom, doing something. Then it suddenly accelerates and leaves no wake as it slams through the water at an impossible speed. Ryu ends up on its nose as it charges, and Moira barely dodges. The Axiom is almost throbbing across the skin of the whale, and Ryu slams his palm down to start disrupting the pattern. The whale recognizes the danger and begins to buck and shake, but its Axiom effect collapses and it suddenly slows as its trick suddenly fails. The whale stops hard and lets out a sound that Ryu can feel bouncing off of him. Less aggressive, less angry, much more thoughtful and very curious. It suddenly swims away and its wake disrupts several more torpedoes from Moira, even as she zips up faster than Ryu can move. It's acting differently, Ryu says as she approaches. How so? I disrupted one of its effects. That got its attention. Ryu answers and Moira seems baffled. So it's smart enough to use Axiom intentionally and learn, Moira says as the whale swims in a circle as it regards them both at a distance. The whale song shifts and goes probing, questioning, and then it dips, rises up for a massive breath of air, and departs. Just like that? Moira asks. Just like that, Ryu says before nodding. We may have another race developing. That song sounded too deliberate, too intentional. It's not there yet, but it's on the path. Right, Moira says. I suppose finding that a species is evolving is the least exciting thing to happen to me for the past few days. Let's get back to the boat and then see if that scanner can be salvaged. I'm fairly sure its first Blackwater bullet shattered it, Ryu says as he starts to swim upwards. Moira, as a Lidris, simply adjusts the amount of water in her system and starts to float upwards. Swim bladders are so very useful. They're alive, a snicked woman declares as she buzzes overhead, and both Ryu and Moira begin swimming for the boat even as it turns to come to get them. What happened? The water is so full of dirt and grime, we can't make anything out from our angle or Mercy demands. It's gone. We fended it off, Ryu says as he climbs up into the boat. He turns to offer Moira help up, but she just outright scoffs at him. You're going to need a bigger boat, she says plainly, and is baffled as he starts laughing at her.